We're going on an adventure to Hyrule Castle today, but it's not a normal adventure. I want to show you what happens when you sneak in during the night and make it past the guards, and all sorts of other odd things along the way. We got some ground to cover, so I hope you enjoy this odd exploration of one of Ocarina of Time's areas. Making my way to Hyrule Castle as a kid was kind of thrilling, if I'm gonna be honest. Now, coming straight from Super Mario 64's castle, I had high hopes for Ocarina of Time's, and even though the inside of this castle was limited, I still liked it a lot. But did you ever stop to look around the area that surrounds the castle? Like, really take your time to explore that map. If you haven't, well, you're in luck. I have a few different things I want to show you out here. Now, I haven't really done videos like this since like 2017. I used to do these exploratory commentated videos that were kind of like Let's Plays, but not really. But I'm kind of enjoying the format now. It's been a very long time. And for those of you who have been watching this channel for a long time, you'll know that I've also talked about this area in previous videos. One of the main reasons I love this area specifically was because of the little guard station that was underneath the bridge. So you have that gate that blocks you from going forward, and normally you have to climb up and then go over and then go down, basically to avoid the guards. But there's that little interior room that almost serves no purpose. As a kid, I used to call this my house. I would come here and act like this was my new house, as opposed to the one that's in Kokiri Forest. And something I didn't really know about this room at the time was that the torch in here is something you can actually stand on. The fire does not hurt you at all, and Link can hop up into this flame and just kind of duck down and be consumed by the fire. This would be an awesome hiding spot for hide and seek on Ocarina of Time Online, just saying. But let's move on. When I first borrowed an action replay from my buddy in the mid-2000s, and I had the Master Quest version of this game, I basically explored areas like this. I climbed the top of all the hills here that you normally cannot get to, which is what I'm doing in this video right now, to show you different perspectives of things that I discovered, 15 years ago? Maybe longer? How does time work? I can't do the math in my head. But all these hills surrounding the castle take you to the edge of the world, and all of them can be walked on, but most of them are out of reach simply because the access points to getting on top of them are not normally reachable by a player. And while you're up here, you can kind of see that the castle itself just kind of falls apart. It's just a bunch of flat shapes and 3D objects that are layered in a way so that when you're looking at it from down below, the perception is it is a fully functional 3D castle. But the reality is, the castle itself is just pieces and parts that are sort of floating and give the illusion that there's a castle there. If you were to try to jump on top of this, you would fall right through it. There's no standable ground, it's not like Super Mario 64's castle at all, and you're going to plummet to your death. Now before we head into the castle, I want to talk about the river real fast. So there's a stream or a river that flows around the castle like a moat, and it basically goes into this grating on the left side. If we were to get past that grating, we can see that actually the water just ends. The visual effect for the water is still there, but Link is able to stand under the water and not have to swim. Obviously, this proves that Link has situational gills that he doesn't want us to know about, but it's interesting how all the water sort of tapers off in this game. And a lot of times it's areas like this where you could stand back here in this forbidden area and just kind of look up. Looking at the castle from over here is very strange. It barely resembles a castle. It's just a bunch of random shapes that I mentioned before, and yeah, it's very bizarre. But with all that said, now let's head into the castle. Now the castle itself really is just 2 rooms. You crawl in through this hole into this waterway, and then you have to make it past some guards, and then you reach the castle courtyard. Or basically what I'm calling the courtyard, because even though in my mind I always refer to Zelda's room as a courtyard. But yeah, it's only 2 rooms. You have the sneaking part, and then you have Zelda's room. Now normally you have to go through the sneaking part during the daytime, because if you try to enter this area at night, there are 2 guards who are standing there who will stop you. The reason why this is because they wanted the cutscene with Zelda to take place during the day. Because it would be very, very weird if Ganondorf was meeting the King of Hyrule during the dead of night, and also that Zelda was up just in the courtyard peeking through a window. So they wanted to make sure that the player always got there during the daytime. And even the room itself, that courtyard where Zelda's at, that room doesn't have a proper day-night cycle. The Skybox is not interactive. It is always day in that room, regardless of what time of day it is in the game. So basically, the sky is more like a roof, and it's fake. But we'll get back to this room with Zelda in it in a second. We're gonna go back outside now to that sneaking area and make it be nighttime. So no matter what, when you go in at nighttime, there are always 2 guards standing there who will stop you. And trying to get around these guards is impossible. even if you were to moon jump over top of them, they would still sense that you were there. Even if you were to get behind them, which obviously defeats the purpose of them stopping you, but the trigger is still there. There's sort of like a wider trigger that goes up into the sky, and even if you're above them or around them, they're still going to stop you and throw you out. But we're going to send these 2 guards home early. We're going to make them leave their shift, and we are basically going to unload them in the game right now. When these guards are gone, so are their hitboxes, so we can just walk past this area. But there's another problem. And the main problem why breaking into the castle at night is a bad idea. So because the game developers knew that the player would never make it past these guards, they made it so the camera itself never moved from the start. It's always in that fixed position. Now, if we were to move the camera out improperly, just so we can get a view of this entire room, you'll notice that the courtyard just ends. If we were to walk out there with Link to the edge, it's basically a sheer drop off to a cliff. The rest of the courtyard does not exist. It was consumed by the void. And this is truly Hyrule Castle's ultimate defense. At nighttime, half the castle just deletes itself. So of course, falling off this, or jumping off it, leads to our death, and so does trying to go into the river. The river itself that flows next to this also mysteriously ends. But the river itself actually has no water in it. Trying to jump in the river will make us just fall through the map, because again, there's a fence there that normally the player cannot get past, so there's no point in making Link being able to swim in this water. If we peek out of bounds, we can even see the sun and moon sort of in the background, way out of bounds. Now, the map itself, from my knowledge, is actually not deleted. And the reason why I believe this is because there are 2 camera angles when you enter this room that sort of reveal that. There's a up-close camera angle to the tunnel that you crawl out of, and then it instantly changes to the 2 guards with a farther back camera view. At this point, the amount of land visible actually changes. So the game is actively culling out the area inside this castle, and it's dependent on the in-game camera. Now, I'm manipulating the camera that isn't associated with the actual, culling feature. In order to change that, we would have to reassign where the camera is actually facing for these locked positions. And honestly, that would be pretty cool to see if the rest of this map actually exists during night. I do not have the ability to do that at this moment. When I figure out how to do that, maybe I'll see if it exists. But as it stands, this area is very, very deadly for Link to explore. I highly recommend him not trying to go through this place at night. Something else that's interesting is there's these giant stone walls that for some reason Link can stand on top of. He normally has no way to get up here, nor will the camera ever show him up here, but all of these surfaces can be walked on. And what's kind of really interesting about this area is that in the 3DS version of this game, there is normally a hidden hallway behind this entire map. Now this hallway exists, but there's no way for the player to get into it. It sort of serves as like a background asset so that when the player is sneaking through here, they can see that there's actually more to the castle. Because as it stands, the castle in this game makes no sense at all. There's like no openings, and also the courtyard itself doesn't make sense. So yeah, you have this giant flowing hallway that goes behind this entire scene that the player can never actually get into. And I thought that was kind of cool, because it does not exist in the Nintendo 64 version of this game. Now, 2 quick things, because people are probably curious. But if you were to enter this area as an adult, you can do it, but upon exiting, it'll warp you to the castle town entrance when you're facing Ganondorf's castle. That's obviously because there is no spawn point associated with exiting Zelda's castle when it doesn't exist in the future. On the flip side, if we were to go to Princess Zelda's courtyard area and then try leaving after setting the game to nighttime, you'll realize that the normal warp that takes you to the end of the sneaking area does not exist. During the night, both warps take you to the crawl entrance. I wasn't sure this was going to work. I thought I was honestly going to spawn and fall to my death, but no, both warps, either entering or exiting, take you to the same spot, and it's all the way at the front of the Splinter Cell section. So now, let's actually head into Zelda's courtyard area. So in the courtyard, there are several rooms that we can see, but only one of these rooms can actually be entered. The 2 side rooms obviously have Easter eggs that things can happen with. Trying to enter either of these rooms just makes us fall. However, the water in the moat that goes around this room actually extends out of bounds, and out of bounds is deep enough so we can swim in it. So even though we fell through the floor, we can land in the water and sort of swim around out of bounds. But the one area I want to focus on is actually the room that Ganondorf appears in. Now normally, when you talk to Zelda, you end up peeking through this window and you see Ganondorf walk in and kneel. And in the background, there's 2 castle guards. Now what's interesting about this room is that the edges of this window actually define the 3D boundaries of that room. If you were to go back there, you'll see that the room just cuts off. It is designed to perfectly fit within that window, and nothing else past that matters. Now they did make it so you could walk back here. This is the only exterior room in this area that you can walk in. And we can actually go up to the guards in the background, and they are actually baked into the 3D model for the room. It's very strange. They don't actually have textures on the back. They're just front-faced polygons that represent guards. And when you get closer up to them, they really just kind of look funny. So of course, even though the king is supposed to be off to our right, there's nothing there. Standing in this room feels like a weird fever dream. It feels like that weird glitch where in Super Mario 64 you can fall through the castle and you keep opening the door and it keeps taking you behind the door. Like that weird space, that weird transitional space that you normally cannot get into. You're like stuck there. And that's what this feels like. It feels like one of the small rooms behind the doors in the game that are used for transitions. Looking back at the courtyard shows that, well, we can just see into the courtyard completely. I tried to talk to Zelda by scooting to the edge, and I was hoping to talk to her from inside the window, but I couldn't get close enough to talk, and I ended up falling out of bounds into the water. I do like how they pull this area off though in the 3DS version of the game. It really feels much more alive than it does in the Nintendo 64 version. Taking the camera around and looking at the flags and stuff, you know, it's kinda neat. Now, this brings our adventure to an end, but if you like videos like this, let me know in the comments below. It's been a while since I've done these, but I'm really having a lot of fun with them, so I hope you enjoyed them too. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!